I would like to hand over to the moderator of our first session, the Islamic Economy and Corporate Strategy Agendas, John Defterius, Senior Anchor for Emerging Markets at CNN. John is a World Economic Forum media leader and member of the Global Agenda Council on the Arab World. John has served as chairman of the Business Week Leadership Forum in London, Beijing, and New York.
Thanks for joining us this morning. The topic of our discussion as people file in from our gala dinner last night is the Islamic economy in corporate strategy agendas. I'll introduce each one of our guests. Hold your applause, and then we can give them a nice warm welcome as they get seated. First, let me welcome the Chief Executive Officer of Emirates Modern Poultry here in the UAE, Dr. Rashid Dafala. Come on up to the stage, sir. Nirmal Govindadas is the Senior Vice President of Corporate Treasury for Emirates Airline, of course, here in the UAE. And Ayup Isik is the Senior Vice President of Finance for Turkish Airways here in Istanbul, based in Istanbul, but of course visiting us here at the Islamic Global Economic Summit. A nice warm welcome to our panelists here, and fighting traffic and doing everything else but making it to our stage.
You want us to sit in a particular way?
Nirmal, you're here?
Yeah.
Mr. Dafala, you're in the middle? Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah,
and yep, you're there. Perfect.
Most difficult part of the
Yeah, it's the most difficult challenge, getting everybody seated. So it's interesting because we've read the research for this event over the last 2 days and the ownership of which the Dubai and the UAE have taken to have a very prominent space in the Islamic economy. And the top line numbers are eye-catching in sheer size and scale. Going forward, though, I think the most important aspect of this all is the growth. We see 23% of the world's population today in this market growing to 26% by 2030. It's young. In the Organization of Islamic Conference countries, the average age is 30. It makes those in the Western world, particularly in Europe and the United States, seem old with a median age of 44. As the emerging markets editor for CNN based here in the UAE, I look to the fast-growing frontier in emerging markets, of course, and the growth is enticing from a macroeconomic standpoint, averaging 5.4%. I'm sure you saw the comments of Christine Lagarde of the International Monetary Fund ahead of their annual meeting, which is taking place in Peru over the weekend. There's concern that 3.5% growth would be held in 2016, and we're looking at 5.4, 5.5, perhaps even a 6% for 2016 in the Islamic world. But to date, and this is the challenge, of course, that everybody's been grappling with over the last 24 hours, there's not one single interpretation for halal guidelines around the world just yet. It goes from the more conservative in certain countries, as we know, to the more liberal. It gives business flexibility, of course, to have that interpretation and to kind of seize different markets around the world. But it also makes it difficult at the same time for business decision makers they have on our panel here. How much do you commit to a certain market if you don't know the interpretation of the regulations and, for example, the financial framework going forward? That is the big question to address today. But I wanted to start by addressing a question to all three members of the panel. And I think, Nirmal, you would be a good person to address the first aspect of this. 5 years ago, when we had the discussion about the Islamic economy, nobody could put a finger on it, the size of it, the growth rate of it, and whether there was momentum behind it as well. Mm-hmm. So we actually at a stage 5 years after the first declaration of its potential that it's tangible. How do you see it in a tangible way for Emirates Airline and the growth aspects of it that you see at this juncture?
Absolutely. John, that's such an important part. I myself personally have been in Dubai and UAE for the past 20 years, and we just rolled back 5 years when we had this discussion. They were all discussions, but now in these 5 years there has been a quantum leap by the respective governments, not only in the UAE but internationally, to recognize this space. We as an airline are also just not flying an aircraft as a group. We have the airline, ground handling, catering, and travel. And in that space, we have seen a lot of activity coming in. There are portals, there are travel agencies, there are hotels, inventories, airlines, and the financial world around that, you see substantial and tangible regulations, compliances, and markets being created. Physically, we have seen that, and that's a segment now that's not in the unknown region now. We know exactly now where we're headed for, what is the potential and what are the areas that we can tap. And that's great to have, because it's a huge potential that's out there.
Good.
That's been opened up.
Let's follow up with you, and then I'm going to go to the rest of the panel. If you look at the consumer spending on entertainment, let's say, for 2014, we're looking at growth of 9.5% to 10% as a segment. So $16 trillion worldwide, about 10% of that in the Islamic product market. That's phenomenal if you look at the growth of the world economy today, hovering around 3.5% or maybe a little bit less.
Yes.
Is that sustainable? Is this the breakout period for this space? And from an airline standpoint, do you think it's a pace that will be continuing going forward?
Yeah. I think there are two aspects to that, John, and which you said correctly. One is the worldwide growth, but in that, we need to somehow carve out the industry within this region. And what we're seeing is, it's phenomenal growth, and I think it'll continue for some time, but all things come to a steady state at some point. That's how the law of nature is. But the interesting aspect is, even if the world GDP or the economy is growing at 3 or 4%, the portion of that coming in towards this region is much more. So for us in this region, it's much more than 3%. It's 8%, 9%, even if the world is growing at 3%, because there is so much of focus within this region and a focus to promote that sort of products, and one of them being the Islamic products. So we're going to get a bigger share of that 3%, and I think the growth will be there continuously for almost a decade at least, and then we'll see. Wow. Absolutely, I'm pretty sure of that.
Okay, Dr. Abdullah, I'll come to you next, but I want to stay in the same sector in Turkish Airlines, and I'll have you address the food sector as we see it. And then individually, I'd like to go into various aspects of this market and how you approach it. The UAE has positioned itself as a kind of a gateway to the east and west, very much like Turkey does, and the giant airport that's being built in Istanbul today. If I was going to look at your strategy, Ayub, does it have a tilt to the east and south and a tilt to the Islamic market today, because it's just natural growth and this is where Turkish Airlines is going?
Well, obviously, the airlines are global, but at the end of the day, the geography plays an important role where they are. And currently, approximately 25% of our sales are domestic. If you add them the other parts of the world, we are talking about approximately 40% of the sales that are taking place in majority Muslim countries. If you take into the region and the whole world together, and if you look at this Muslims traveling, then obviously we see a higher percentage of numbers among our profile, among our passenger profile. So obviously this is a segment that we look at carefully and that we see ways to cater. But apart from just the numbers, perhaps we need to focus that it's the value-sensitive Muslim consumer, the portion of the ratio of value-sensitive Muslim consumer among this group, this is rising. IATA sees $20,000 per capita as the level where the air travel starts for the population.
As a baseline, 20,000 and above.
As an economical resource, it sees $20,000 as that region. And if you look at the region that we operate, if you look at Africa, if you look at significant parts of Asia that we operate and we cover, we see a significant amount of people actually rising in terms of income and coming to that level.
We're going to get you a handheld there just to adjust your mic.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead and pick it up. He'll adjust while you talk.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this is itself showing us that significant, now the voice is back. There are significant opportunities in the area that we are operating, and this is what we'd like to cater in different manners and in different services.
It's amazing how much the dialogue has changed. I was talking about 5 years ago, we didn't focus on the Islamic market as a potential market. But I remember attending the Organization of Islamic Conference in Southeast Asia. And the biggest issue was youth unemployment and trying to generate jobs and trying to create a market for products to go in and out. The whole dialogue has completely changed in terms of where we're focused today. It's more of a growth conversation, needing to generate the jobs. But now it's a market that people actually see as something you're able to tap.
Exactly, and this is where the trend is going. And here is where we see the potential. Catering these needs and providing these services adds shareholders' value. And henceforth, this is the conversation comes from. So it's the way that actually catering the needs of the Muslim, the value-sensitive Muslim consumer, and its link to shareholder value. When we see that, then we see a lot of progress for all companies. At the end of the day, this is the link that we provide. That's what the private firms. Our foundation is based on. So this link and the potential is there, and henceforth the chance for growth.
Okay, Dr. Defala, tell us about your approach to the market here. You're a producer of poultry and dairy products from the UAE, which is a challenge in itself because of the climate and the landscape. But how have you approached the halal market specifically? And do you have plans, if you haven't done so already, to cross borders, a GCC strategy, and even a bigger market? Is there potential to do so, and do you partner with other countries to tap the growth that we've been talking about?
Yeah, thank you very much. In fact, if I just go back a little bit, Islamic or halal food processing, not just slaughtering, you see, it started as just processing or slaughtering animals or animal byproducts, you see, according to Islamic rites. And then slowly it came to Islamic banking. But now we see the dimensions of Islamic economy and Islamic products. It means, practically it means, you see, quality products. Practically it means that we have to protect the consumer, whoever the consumer is, you see, from noxious or toxic elements which might pollute and taint our products. And this is done through the Islamic rite processes in slaughtering, in processing the animals and animal byproducts. So it is no longer just halal slaughter. It went even a step further by the announcement of Dubai and promoting UAE as a center for Islamic products, which is a very generous approach from His Highness the ruler of Dubai. And it took us to another level, to a global Islamic economy, which, as I heard from the figures, and I read, in fact, yesterday, is quite substantial and growing very fast in the favor of the consumer.
Well, it's just an interesting point you're making here. Yeah. So you're suggesting once the declaration was made by Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, it really redefined your business plan, is what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the plans going forward after that declaration of this market here from the Middle East and growing outwards?
It is no longer only the economy and the food processing. It is the whole process, you see, of operations, you see, or processing operation. As you see, Emirates Airlines and Turkish Airlines and other airlines are going, because we cannot just ignore 1.7 billion Muslims, you see. And not only that, there are people not necessarily to be Muslim, but still they have confidence on Islamic approaches, you see, towards food processing and other products.
Okay, I want to pick up the trust in finance, but you brought up the word trust here in your initial comments.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating, again, over the last 5 years, halal and trust seem to be coming very close together when it comes to products.
Yes.
Address it when it comes to food and how you've built in that trust into the halal products that you distribute.
For us in food, halal means quality. It has to be a good quality. If we produce 1 kilo or 1 liter of milk and 1 kilo of meat products, it has to be a good quality. and has to serve our people well according to their beliefs, according to, to their demands and needs.
Okay, very good. I want to remind our audience here that we have 3 microphones in the audience. I'm going to ask questions for another 15 minutes, but I invite questions from the floor to tap the minds of the people we have here from the different sectors. Trust has been a big issue when it comes to finance. I don't need to remind everybody here, 2008, 9, and 10 didn't hit the emerging markets or the Middle East as much as it hit Europe and the United States, but it actually benefited Islamic finance and the trust that's into the banking systems, particularly with the Sukuk market. I'm going to ask both of our airline strategists who are from the finance sector, what did we learn from that experience? And then even take us through to the fundraising by Emirates now with an Islamic tilt.
Yes. Interesting points came up. Trust, end-to-end, and quality. And that's so very much the essence of Islamic financing. We went through the recession period, but you know what was interesting? We still had a few transactions we had done through Islamic financing during that period. Those were the most stable transactions that stayed on, because the very essence of Islamic financing is stability. To go through tough times and good times together.
I think it helps that you know what you're buying.
Yes. So we found that was the most stable product that was there. And that made us look at it more harder. And there was a thrust from the UAE government, Dubai government, to look at financing. And that really made us work very closely with the banks in UAE, with the Sharia scholars that we have. And I would say the trust quickly turned into, it was lack of awareness on the users. You know, we saw it's not complicated. It's friendly, and it helps business, and it's cost effective. And anybody in the world can participate in an Islamic financing. And that led us to say, it is a fabulous, stable product that we have. And there's huge potential to it. So the trust is definitely in. You know, from being the corporate treasurer for Emirates, Islamic financing is a key pillar for our strategy. We have raised close to 42 billion since 2001.
Dollars?
Dollars.
Jeez.
And of that, nearly just a shade under 10% we have done through Islamic financing, which itself is big. And it's a continuous thrust. There is so much of awareness now in UAE, in Europe, and in US. It is phenomenal that the money is coming in, because they're seeing, the investors see it now. Because we have, let me put it that way, demystified the whole essence of Islamic financing. It's simple, secure, and stable.
Yeah, in fact, you did a recent offering.
Absolutely.
In partnership with UK.
Yeah, UK government.
And Dubai, the dual listing.
Yes.
But what I thought the interesting caveat, maybe because I'm American, but there was American demand for it.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, we raised about $900 million through Islamic financing. It was a sukuk listed at the London Stock Exchange and at the DFM. It was guaranteed by the UK government and supported by the Dubai government. We had 8 banks, of which a lot of were local banks, Islamic banks involved in it. And our key marketing strategy was create awareness. So what did we do? We prepared in advance and we went across the world. And the result was 30% of the investors were from US. 30% were from Europe, and the rest was from Middle East and Asia.
Wow.
And another
40% was picked up from basically.
It's and that shows, you know, there's so much potential. And the other interesting factor was, of those, not all were banks. They were private wealth, financial institutions, insurance companies, pension funds, and banks. So that's another diversification that we have done. It's not only regional, but within the region, tapping different pockets of investors.
Ayub, give us your experience. Now, have you tapped the Sukuk market for Turkish Airlines? Do you want to do it for expansion? Do you find the same sort of demand? Tell us what you think about in terms of Islamic finance as it applies to the airline and its very big expansion plans.
Right. We have approximately $2 to $3 billion of annual capital spending, primarily due to aircraft acquisitions. And certainly, this kind of capital spending is requiring the kind of the financing that's associated with that. The Islamic finance area is certainly an area that we've looked at, and we see a lot of potential there. But there is a lot of work from our perspective and probably from the investor perspective to work together. What we haven't seen is that there isn't the currency diversification that would cater the needs of airlines like ourselves, but not just limited to ourselves. To give an example, most airlines which have limited flights to the North American airspace effectively are short in dollars. That's primarily due to the fact that the fuel is denominated in dollars, and also the equipment, the aircraft and the rest of the equipment is primarily denominated in dollars. It's a dollar industry. So many airlines have different currencies, such as euro in the case of Turkish Airlines, that they are long in. If we develop together with the investor community these means to open up other currencies, I think the interest from Turkish Airlines and many other airlines will increase. As Nirmal pointed out, that it's an important diversification. During the years of the crisis in 2009 timeframe, we see the banking sector effectively very reluctant to lend. And in these years, we haven't seen that in the Islamic sector. We have seen that supply was there. But in order to, again, make that link between shareholder value and the airline, as well as the need of the value-sensitive Muslim investor, we need to work on these structures and effectively add further diversification primarily to the currency. I think when we see that, I think we will see far more interest from many airlines, Turkish Airlines being one of them, in this specific field.
You know, it's interesting, Dr. Tafala, from a food standpoint, there's a real drive today to know the source of your products, to lean towards organic products, to be able to trace the source and not even have a carbon footprint, or to minimize a carbon footprint. Yes. That's very challenging here in the Gulf states, obviously, because of the landscape that we're talking about here. Can you join together the halal strategy and the desire for organic foods and maximize this growth as the wealth creation moves up here in the Islamic market? Are you thinking of that strategy at this stage right now, or are you focused entirely on halal? Or do you want to move with this trend that people are willing to pay a premium for organic products, and you can have a UAE producer be at the lead of this? Or is this not on your radar as of yet?
Sure, we would love everything to be natural. If I can put the word, the organic, you see in its right explanation. And this is a whole, in fact, idea about Islamic rights processing or processing food according to Islamic rights. I would like here to mention, in fact, the help in UAE in particular we are getting from the different authorities. With us alone as a producing entity, will not be able, in fact, to find out what is, good for the consumer, not what is bad for the consumer when it comes, you see, to certain levels of minerals, levels of certain mycotoxins, for example. But with food control authorities, which are very strong and highly equipped in UAE in particular, yeah. If I mention Dubai Municipality, of course, and Abu Dhabi Food Control Authority, they are very advanced and they are very meticulous and they are very, very up to date, you see, in the survey of all incoming raw materials, all in the country domestic production from all mycotoxins, from all non-halal products, not necessarily feed or food. It's even cosmetic products, you see, are well surveyed and scrutinized, you see, by these authorities in different emirates, you see. In fact, not necessarily, but the whole country is based on the quality, and quality cannot be assured unless you have a body which we can monitor, in fact, this quality.
Good. This raises a very interesting point for the panel. In my opening remarks, I talked about the local interpretation and the Sharia compliant boards, for example, when it comes to finance and how the scholars interpret it and work with the national governments. But are we inching towards regional interpretations for the food market? Are we getting towards regional interpretations for Islamic finance? Because you need to get scale, and you don't want to go market to market trying to interpret. Are we finding these interpretations business friendly or not? Do you want to pick it up from there?
Interesting point, John. And when we started initially about, say, a decade back, we found the interpretations were a big challenge because it was not even regional, it was within banks.
Oh, their own interpretations?
Yes.
Okay.
That's long ages back. And that was a key challenge because then you would have to challenge those interpretations across that. But as things have moved and as the focus and the trust and the support that has been created in the environment by the Dubai government, the interpretations have become seamless. And that's what was key to us getting investors from across the world. The interpretation was very much by UAE, the scholars of the various Sharia board, primarily based in UAE and Middle East, but it was accepted worldwide. And that's where the US, the Europe, even the Islamic funds from there, they said it's been endorsed, it's the fatwa has been issued by the scholars, we accept it because they have followed some unified principles. And that's the key thing. Once we have unified, agreed principles, and that's the key of world business. Once we have unified platforms, people understand that, then you can get the endorsement, and we have achieved that in the financing. That's why it's listed at the London Stock Exchange, at the Dubai DFM, and it's accepted. So all the boards across who have to adhere to Islamic principles, they are accepting the unified rules put in there. That's a great benefit for us, and we've seen that, and a lot of kudos to the banks because they are having Sharia scholars from across each other. It's not that they are scholars. They are using the best scholars in the world across their boards, and they're common.
Good. Let's have this conversation about how this market evolves and going forward, because we know that Malaysia took the lead when it came to Sukuk issuance, its interpretation, the ability to set up the Sharia-compliant boards, moving quickly to be very business-friendly. So you say Southeast Asia has Malaysia very dominant. Are we saying now the UAE or Dubai is a pillar for the Middle East, and London becomes the pillar for Europe? Ayub, how do you see it from your perspective in Istanbul looking west and looking east? Is this the pillars of finance going forward, and the UAE has staked its claim rightfully here in the Middle East for finance?
I think as...
I know Istanbul wants a piece of the market, so it's a provocative question.
Yeah, thank you. I think as the sector grows and as the interest in Islamic finance grows, we will see multiple centers that will where it will flourish. So there's probably a lot of synergies where the people, the investor community, the financiers, and not just related to finance, but overall consumers working on this will lead to that point. And the standardization will help as long as it's inclusive, as long as it provides the comfort to, and it caters the need of those involved. Standardization will certainly help. In addition to standardization, though, there are, I think, points that need to be made. I think there are many instruments. There's many innovations that can be added to this to this area, especially on the finance area. to give an example, the enhanced equipment certificates, the so-called EETCs, are a very common form of financing in the US. We have to tap this market, and so that Emirates actually before us. And it's actually, these are aircraft-backed bonds where effectively the airline benefits from the low risk, because effectively aircraft is a very good collateral. Now, we have looked at this from the Islamic finance perspective. What we have seen is that the asset is there because of, as a part of compliance to the Islamic law. So the finance is used in the acquisition of this asset. But we haven't seen, at least for the Sukuk bonds, it's somewhat there for the loans, but at least for the Sukuk bonds, the asset is not there as collateral value. The US has enhanced mechanisms to value these assets and to put into the system. I think there is a lot of room there, because the asset is a very integral part of the Islamic finance. But its valuation and its standards can be added, and obviously there is not one-to-one match, but a lot of things can be adopted there, and it's a very important mechanism of finance for airlines, and I think there is a market need there, and again, between the investors, the airlines, the work needs to be done to improve this market and make it inclusive. We have seen that the EETC actually is not just specific to US. We have recently issued in the Japanese market in the yen format. So it's actually adaptable per currency. Now, obviously, we are talking about a legal framework difference, but I think the core of concept is there. So more work can be done there, and I think that will enhance a lot of avenues for Islamic finance, and also will actually meet a need that the airlines have.
Great. I want to open the floor to questions. So can you just give me a wave where the microphones are? Do we have any questions? We have some questions from the floor. Excellent. If we can be very quick and hand the gentleman here, and then the gentleman behind him microphones, please, as quick as possible. And then the second gentleman, can you put your hand up so we can make sure the microphone gets to you as well? The gentleman, there we go. And we'll come to this person third. But if we can go back to the gentleman in the back to give him his microphone in the meantime so we don't lose time. Sir, can you put your hand up in the back? We'll get you a microphone again. Please, sir, go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much for this very enlightening session. I like what Mr. Das said about the need to demystify Islamic finance. I think this is very important. And one area which I did not hear any of the speakers tackle is the area of social responsibility for Islamic finance. Part of the job of a manager in an Islamic financial institution or Islamic abiding institution is a responsibility towards workers, consumers, the general public. And I think this is an aspect that we need to discuss as well.
Great. Sir, where are you from? Out of curiosity.
I am Dr. Suleiman. I used to be the former CEO of ICD, which is a financial institution.
Excellent.
I come from Egypt. Thank you.
Excellent question. Why don't you tackle that? That's a great point.
Absolutely, and you know, that has been at the core of Emirates Group as such, the social responsibility, and more so, like you said, from the Islamic perspective, you know, from our obligations and our responsibilities towards the society, towards our shareholders, towards the employees, and more importantly, towards the whole ecosystem that we live in. And that has been at the core of our corporate philosophy. There are different initiatives that are done in different fields, and I mean, we could spend time later to explain that, but and I fully agree with you that that's something that is, and it's a board point of discussion.
Ethos.
Yes, ethos. It's core to our values. And very simply putting it, you know, we have about 10,000 employees in our Emirates Group headquarters, and we have several lifts. And each of that lift has a message from our chairman and the board, which is about corporate responsibility. So I see that every day at 7 o'clock when I take that lift. And I've been there for 23 years with Emirates Group. And I can tell you that's so important. And that's one of the success factors of the Emirates Group. It looks at it holistically. It's just not about making profits or tapping something that's available. It's how we give back. Because when you give back, you get much more in return.
Would you apply that to finance, though? Because there's also, again, we talked about trust in lending in this sort of space. But as a company, do you feel greater aligned with your clientele, with the ethos of Turkey as a country, or in the case of Emirates with the UAE, to be leaning towards this ethos that's aligned with a good bit of its client base? Does it apply?
I think the point that has been made is important, that the social responsibility, although somewhat overlooked, is critical. And airlines perhaps has in a unique situation in the sense that the number of countries and the number of different regions that they operate, and they need to be part of the communities where they are, and they need to give back the communities where they are actually part of that business. And from an Islamic perspective, I think that will be looked at. That perhaps a value sensitive Islamic consumer or an investor probably will look at very carefully the kind of the social responsibility and to what extent it's part of that community and how it is giving back. And in that sense, Turkish Airlines is taking and executing projects in the different regions that we are operating, and we have a specific charity group that we have set up, where actually within the this is not being officially orchestrated. It's effectively an employer initiative, but it is actually undertaking projects to make sure that we are part of the community that we operate, and we give back to the needy where we are.
Good. Oh, you had a question from the back there, if he has the microphone. There was another gentleman behind him also. Can we, the people with the microphones, can you give me a wave? Because we had one here, so we don't wait in between. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ahmed Sadiq. I'm from South Africa. As I'm standing here, sitting in this conference, I'm a little bit confused. We speak about Islamic economics, Islamic finance, Islamic banking, and we speak about halal. How do we deal with Islamic economics, from a halal perspective? But we find wherever we are, for instance, in the Arab world, which is known as the Islamic world, we still deal in, what the issue is not being even raised here, is the issue of alcohol. The issue of, when you go to any airlines, Arab airlines, even in Dubai, even the hotels, even in Mecca, Saudi Arabia itself, you find there's khamr. Now, I don't understand this issue of, if you speak about Islamic finance, how do you deal with something that is haram? Because you wouldn't deal in narcotics, you wouldn't fund narcotics, but you would fund and you would deal with khamr. Now, I don't understand this. If someone could just clarify.
Very good question.
From Islamic finance point of view.
Perfect. I think this is for our corporate treasury folks.
Yeah,
Das?
it's an important point there, and Emirates is an international airline. It caters to aspects across the world, and what we do is we provide a choice which is available very clearly. So we respect that, and as a product, we provide that. And even in the Islamic financing, I think there is a view that how the Sharia boards take in and they carve out anything which is not Islamic, and those form part of the asset base that is part of the financing. And that's very clearly a dictate and a mandate that we have. And that's how we adhere to the principles. And from a product perspective, it's the availability of the choice, but at the same time, all aspects are respected.
Yeah, this raises a very interesting, Dr. Tafala, you can jump in as well if you'd like. It's inclusiveness. So, and I take the point of the question, it's a very good question, but how do you remain inclusive with your client base? It's a challenge,
Yeah,
right?
that's the challenge, and especially when you're in a space which is confined. If you take an airplane, it's available and it's huge. It's like a bus that you have. So it's being inclusive, but at the same time, having the ability to respect the respective principles that we need to adhere to.
Good. Use the
So-
Orlando example. You say you just opened a route to Orlando.
Yes.
And
that-
this willingness by different tourism authorities to be open
Yes.
to this market.
Exactly, and that's an important point, to the aspect of the principles that we adhere to. We recently announced our flights to Orlando in US, and because we are, sensitive to the requirements of the Islamic tourism, we ensured that there is a prayer room available at the airport. It wasn't there. But Emirates started flying, and we said, before we fly, we need to have access to a prayer room which is available to our Islamic passengers. And that was built before we started flying. And second part is we also provide, halal tourism, where there are hotels we identify who respect the aspects of alcohol, of halal, and that's provided through our travel arm, Donata Travel in Dubai. And that's how we cater to the principles that we have. But the key is being inclusive of all that, the products that we provide.
Okay. We have some microphones on the floor here, please. Thank you very much. Nice job with the mics, by the way. If you can stand up, sir, it'd be great. And where's our next question coming from? Excellent. Thanks.
Assalamu alaikum. Hi. I got a question for Brother Rashid, who takes care of the poultry. A couple of days ago, we were in Carrefour and we went through the food aisle. And there's a lot of chicken produced locally, and it has the logo halal. Is there any government agency that enforce that logo? Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You talked about the government agency, but how is it defended, the quality of halal?
As far as Ibris Poultry is concerned, and we have in fact an active presence of the Dubai municipality inspectors during our slaughter, during our ante-mortem surveying and watching the chicken before being slaughtered, surveying the dairy cows, you see, making sure that there are no antibiotics used. And when it comes to the halal procedure itself, you see, they have certified people who slaughter, certified by the Dubai municipality, you see, and the inspectors are always there. Besides that, we have our conscience. We raise the flag of halal. We have to stick the flag of halal, and we have to stick to the quality of the production, you see. And for us, quality it means halal, you see. And different authorities have different approaches to the food processing and it's not only the slaughter, it is also the amount and the type of the raw materials you see we used in our production, either for feed and so on, has to be also clearly and surveyed, you see, and approved by different food authority and different lab. And they have the capability, they have all the lab equipments, you see, to do that. To mention that the most important thing about UAE, I think it is the only country in the Middle East which shall not stunning bears, you see, for slaughter.
No stunning.
No stunning.
Okay.
And this is very, very, very important issue in halal because the animal has to be aware of the surroundings before being slaughtered. And this is clearly known here in this country and well known to municipalities, and they are looking for that. They're inspecting all the processing plants, all the slaughter houses you see before even large animals or bears before being slaughtered.
Great. We're just going to take a final question from the floor. Who has one there? Please. Thank you. We have to wrap in 2 minutes. Thanks.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Falah Al-Izzi. I'm from Canada. I've been in the poultry industry for 15 years. My question, I'll just make a comment and a question to Dr. Rashid and a comment to you, John. I saw a bumper sticker. It has a chicken on it and it says, I used to be normal, now they call me organic. So this organic is just a marketing, it's a marketing tool.
And they get a premium for it as well.
It's a
for
marketing
sure.
tool. Dr. Rashid, throughout the 15 years, I've seen the industry move from skyrocketing. It's just tremendous, because today, as the United Nations is saying to all the countries, please do not produce cows, because 40% of the atmosphere is because of the cows. Some estimate 30–40%. So we're getting away from cows. With 2007, the mad cow disease in England, the number has gone down. I can tell you the population of Canada in those days was 29 million, and we had 31 million cows. Today, the population of Canada is 35 million, we have 7 million cows. So the number of cows is just diminishing. And we're moving towards a poultry industry. Poultry industry has been double digits growth since 2007. With that, there is lots of issues, lots of problems. One of the biggest problems, and John, you're aware of it, in North America, everybody is moving towards what's called organic, which I call it normal. Nobody wants to use antibiotic. Nobody wants the use of all these numbers. In Europe, they call it, I believe it's CO1. They don't even give you the ingredients name. Part of that ingredients comes from non-halal. Most of it is non-halal, actually.
Wow.
So how would you control the market? My question to you, Dr. Rashid, is, do you foresee one day in our life that this GCC and the Middle East is self-sufficient when it comes to food? Because today food is economy. Today food is a power. If you have the food, you're powerful. If you don't have the food, you're not powerful. And we have one example called Japan. Doesn't have food, and look what they're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a very good question. In fact, regarding the organic or natural, I prefer, in fact, the term natural than organic. But if we assume that the chicken will be organic, it will be very difficult, really very difficult to classify a chicken or a cow as organic, as long as we are not sure of the feed is organic. Most of corn, if I take, is genetically modified. So this is no longer economic. And no longer organic, no longer natural, you see. And we cannot do anything about it, because to feed the 9 billion coming before, we have to do some genetic engineering, you see, to do.
Well, that's one of the cardinal rules. You have to turn off your phone before you come on a stage.
Yeah.
And it only rang in the last 30 seconds. We have to wrap it up, so be precise.
Yeah.
Okay? Thank you.
And
you have a fine coming your way for keeping that phone on.
Regarding the chickens are the least polluting animal production unit, you see. Cows, of course, cows produce the methane, and that is a fact. But we have to find a way to utilize this methane economically, and ways are there. Because people have to apply. It might be very expensive now.
Right, but let's get directly to the point here, because I have to wrap it up. I'm a little over time. How do you become independent in the Middle East? Can you become independent? I know there's been a big push the last 3 years.
It is challenging, but look at the Middle East, look at Dubai, look at UAE, see, 20 years back and now, you see. So I think independency and self-sufficiency is very easy, because with technology now, if you take agriculture, you have the hydroponic agriculture, you don't need land anymore.
Right.
You can use just hydroponic and grow everything, even in your house. Yeah. So independence with the technology and the a good economy, I think it's easy to be sustained and reached. Yeah.
Good. I want to thank everybody for the questions from the floor. It was excellent, because they broadened out the discussion. Gentlemen, thanks a lot for the analysis and the very succinct answers. Nice round of applause for our group as we continue the debate. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.